Hello, welcome to this week's Caregiver Question of the Week. This week we have a really tough question, actually. It came in from a professional, non-medical caregiver perspective, so from a home care agency. And the question was, what do you do if a client who has dementia will not let a caregiver into the house? What can you do if every time the caregiver shows up, the client becomes angry, they get agitated, they call the police? And as you can see, this is a tough situation. It's a tough scenario. It's an unfortunately pretty common scenario. It's a question that I answer relatively frequently in some of the live trainings that I do for home care agencies. So looking forward to digging into this topic a little bit here today, as much as we can on Caregiver Question of the Week. First, my name's Amelia. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm also the owner and founder of Higher Standards Caregiver Training, as well as the very proud co-founder of WCN University, that's Whole Care Network University. And this is for educational purposes only, okay? So if I say anything that reminds you of someone or something that you think needs to be seen or treated by a licensed healthcare provider, then please make sure you advocate for that, because this is not a substitute for health or medical advice, and it's not a substitute for a therapeutic relationship. Okay, let's talk about this issue. So when I do like kind of formal instruction on caring for folks with dementia, I teach from a framework that I call DEFT. And what DEFT is it's just a really simple acronym to help caregivers remember in a pinch, in a moment, some of the different tools that they have is at their disposal to help people function better or deal with difficult situations. And so what DEFT stands for is there's D for distraction, E for empathy, there's two F's. The first one is for familiar, the second is for flexible, and the T stands for tuned in. And so the elements of DEFT that are really applicable in this situation are E for empathy and F for flexible. So let's talk about each one of those things. This is a tough situation. This is complicated. It's complicated because there are a lot of emotions involved. And the only way that we can change the outcome of a situation like this is really not by changing the person that we're trying to care for, right? We have to be flexible, and we have to figure out how we instead change to fit ourselves into this situation in order to provide care. So that's the F for flexible. How do we become flexible in the right way? We have to really try to put ourselves in the shoes of the person that we're trying to provide care for. What is their experience? What might they be feeling? And so if we think about it, if we put ourselves in that situation, let's say maybe we're a bit confused, or let's say we are well aware that we have dementia, which of course there's a huge time period where people who have dementia are aware that they have dementia, and they probably have lots of feelings about that, right? What feelings might you be having if that was you? You might feel grief. You might feel embarrassment. Oh, hold on, I got a kid. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So sorry. These are the hazards of recording when you are actively also trying to pick up a child from school. Not driving, never driving, parked, guys, always parked. Anyway, though, let's get back into it. So we were talking about trying to understand the emotions and the experience of the person that we're caring for who has dementia in order to allow us to be flexible and fit ourselves better into the situation in a way that is going to make the person with dementia more receptive to that care. So what does that look like? What does that mean? Well, we have someone who, again, might be feeling grief. Maybe they're feeling anger. Maybe they're feeling emasculated or infantilized, or maybe they just feel like they're totally losing control over their own lives. Remember, this is an adult who's been in control of their own lives for decades, who's made all of these decisions, who's not needed help for anything. So they're in a really, really difficult emotional space to try to accept a caregiver into their home to offer this help. So how can we reframe that relationship? How can we reframe the idea of this caregiver into something that ultimately helps the person that we're trying to care for feel respected, feel dignity, and feel like they have some sense of control over what's going on? So sometimes, and that can change, that really depends on the person. It depends on the person that they were before they had dementia, on their lifestyle, on who they are now, right? It depends. It's an individualized thing. But a lot of times it can be helpful to sort of reframe the idea of the caregiver as not a caregiver coming in, but instead a personal assistant who's coming in to help with different things in the home. Sometimes it's helpful if maybe the caregiver doesn't show up in scrubs or a polo that says, Caregivers Inc. or whatever, obviously, whatever the name of the agency is. And instead maybe shows up, dressed in a way that doesn't suggest I'm here to help provide for your personal care needs, right? So how can we help to facilitate an experience that is going to be positive, that feels dignified, and where the person that we are trying to care for feels like they have some sense of control over the situation? Obviously, if you are in a situation where the person with dementia is having hallucinations or delusions, this becomes more complicated. Delusions can tend to be more common in folks who have dementia with Lewy body. That's kind of a different subject to talk about there. But, again, really getting back to this basic idea of, how are we going to be flexible, and how are we flexible in the right way, understanding, using our empathy to figure out what the experience of that person with dementia is, and how can we make that experience better. So I hope that was a helpful answer to that question. It is a tough question. It's a tough scenario. Sometimes there isn't always a perfect solution or something that's going to work 100% of the time. It's really just about understanding the tools that we have at our disposal to try different things until they work. But hopefully that was a helpful answer to what is really can be a tough and frustrating situation to be in when you're trying to care for someone as a professional caregiver, or sometimes even as a family caregiver too. All right, well, if you have a care question, please feel free to submit it. You can submit it totally anonymously. You can use the form that's going to be along with this video. You don't have to share your name. You don't have to share your email. All you have to do is share your question, and I would be delighted to answer it for you as best as I can. And if I'm not the person to answer it, I will find the expert out there who can. All right, y'all, until next time, please stay healthy, stay well, and most of all, take care. Bye.